Emergency Services says 14 bodies have been found in the Jukskei River after a group of churchgoers was swept away by flash floods over the weekend. Officials are still searching for the bodies of more people. It's understood they drowned during a baptism service that took place in Alexandra. So we're asking who should be held accountable for such a devastating tragedy. We're joined this morning by Professor Luka David Mosona, who is the chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission, joins us via our video link this morning. Prof, it's great to have you with us on the program. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. I mean, your first reaction of this story, what unfolded in Alex over the weekend?
My first reaction really is just one of horror, one of really anger at why people are exposed to dangerous places such as rivers when we know that their life are not protected, because what is important in religious practice is the safety and care of people. So rivers are dangerous in many ways, but if baptism as we know it, it's a religious initiation of people into the religious fold. Now, this should take place at a safe environment. For instance, some have decided to create manageable pools around their areas, or even use water and fountains in their own churches without having to take people to these big dams or rivers that are likely to take their lives. Now, taking the lives of whatever number, one is one too many. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I don't think is contemplated and is expected. And those who do this, because leaders lead and congregants follow the leaders, and the leaders must be held accountable. Because if leaders are not held accountable, there would be no deterrent, and our people continue to lose their lives. We know the importance of faith, but we must guard against situations where their lives are going to be taken, and therefore their faith would in fact shake many of their families, who then ask in disbelief why this has happened to my father, to my sister, or to my brother.
Or to my child. I mean, some harrowing accounts in some of the morning papers this morning, Prof, of mothers who tried to throw their children onto the banks of the Jukskei River so that they could survive. Some of them doing so in vain, being swept away with their young children. I mean, this is not the first incident of its kind. Hopefully it will be the last. How do we ensure it's the last? How do we hold religious leaders accountable and perhaps be more stringent with these kinds of practices and the circumstances where we allow these things to take place?
The purpose of belief is not death. If the purpose of belief is death, then people would not believe in that type of environment. As I say, baptism is a Christian initiation. It's encouraged. But it is encouraged for people to do so in safe environment. That safe environment means creating either a font, mere font, because baptism is merely a symbolism of the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. When you immerse a person in water, it's like the person is dying. When that person emerges, is rising with Christ. But that can be done symbolically, as we do, many do with Holy Communion. And they don't use the blood of animals or the blood of human beings to do that. They use wine and wafers or bread. These are symbolical acts which cannot be going back into history the way they were acted in history. And so we remind people to be really very, very careful about the lives of people, to expose life of people to this very dangerous environment. We really discourage this, and we condemn it with the utmost disgust that we feel as a commission. Obviously,
you know, the pastor or any religious leader, no matter what religion you're talking about, they wield a certain amount of influence, right? They would give confidence to congregants. If they say, let's go and do the baptism ceremony there is a level of confidence in the leader of your particular organization. What I'm asking you this morning, Prof, is should we not have an issue where, or a situation where perhaps you need to apply for a license if you're going to conduct a baptism in a river like that there should be some kind of support structure in place, even lifeguards on the side of the Jukskei, if that is where you're insisting on holding your ceremony?
As I say, it's very, very dangerous. Even if you were to have guards won't stop. If there's a wave that comes with such strong force, it won't stop it. Why don't we practice these faith acts in a safe environment? That's the point, what we are calling for. That, of course, the issue of license is something else. But you see, we don't want a situation where Christians are regulated in the form of being given license to do one thing or the next thing. But it is important, it's incumbent upon the leaders not to take people to dangerous places. That should really not be allowed.
So you're saying ban. You're saying if it's a situation where you are wanting to use the Jukskei or a place like the Jukskei for a baptism ceremony, we should ban that altogether and move it to a safer location, a safer, more controlled location.
Move it to a safe place. Yes, don't ban baptism, but move it to a safe place. Don't ban baptism. Baptism is a religious initiation act. It must continue, but it must not be done in a very dangerous place where the lives of people are going to be taken away and lose imagine the entire community being affected by this.
So, Prof, when we talk about holding religious leaders accountable for what happened this past weekend, what would that look like?
Of course, the law enforcement agency must investigate and see who's responsible for this and how did this happen.
Professor Mosona.
There must be a form of investigation. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Is the chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission as we continue to look into practices like this one that took place at the Jukskei over the weekend. 14 bodies discovered in the wake of that drowning incident. It was a baptism turned drowning. I understand emergency services are still this morning going to resume search and recovery efforts.